Alright guys, welcome to section 3. Super exciting, we're going to be getting into flats, and what I've done is I've just set up my artboard with the grid and my rulers showing. So what you want to do first, I've just put these up here so you can kind of see where we're going. What you want to do first is lay down a guide, and this is going to be the center of your garment. You can zoom in. And you can use your grid in the background to kind of give you a general guideline of what you want your flat to look like, to help you kind of like lay out your points. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing out half of our outline. So just this blue highlighted section here. So first thing you want to do is select your pen tool, and the first point you're going to drop is your high point shoulder. And then we're going to come in for our back neck drop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and do the drag. I want this line to be square. So I'm going to hold down Shift, and you can see kind of the width that this is going to be. Obviously it's going to be twice as wide as this is, so if you want it to be a little bit smaller, that's totally fine. What I'm going to do is just lay out my points right now, kind of based on what I think it should be, and then we can change things later. So I'm just going to click on this point again to connect these two pieces. You want this whole outline to be all connected. This is going to be my shoulder. And you want to drop it down just a little bit, and then I'm going to go into where my sleeve is going to be. And remember that we're just building the outline, so don't worry about any details yet. Drop that to be my arm length, and then I'm going to just curve this a little bit so that I can show that the garment is a little bit 3D that I'm drawing. Bring this up to go into the armhole. And I'm just clicking and dropping anchor points as I go. And drop another point. And again, we're going to click, drag, and hold Shift to make sure that's square. So if you imagine this is half your garment, you can already kind of see that there's some issues. I'm going to bring this in. My neck doesn't need to be that wide. My shoulder doesn't need to be that wide. And I think I'm gonna drop this down a little bit. And sometimes it really is just about playing with it, especially when you're drawing in proportional scale. And what we're gonna do to create our other side, let's not have this filled with white. Let's just have it unfilled for now. What you're gonna do is you're going to Control click to bring up your right click, or if you're on PC, right click, and you're going to go down to transform and hit reflect. And sorry, this keeps popping up on my other screen. And you're going to choose vertical, and what you want to do is select copy. If we don't select copy, it's just going to flip what we have selected around, and we don't want to do that. We want to copy what we've already created. And instead of just dragging this over and having it maybe like down here, I'm going to drag and hold Shift to keep it level. And wow, so when I put those things together, it's like, oh my goodness, that is a really wide shirt. That's not what I wanted. So what you can do is I'm going to use my direct select tool, and I'm actually going to draw a bounding box around this whole thing. And I'm just going to bring it in to what I think it should be. And you can see that my curve here now is changing. I can use my direct select tool while holding Shift to keep that square and kind of fix that curve to what I want it to be. And so you can do the same thing by, making those same changes to this side. But instead of wasting our time doing that, I'm just going to delete this because I'm pretty happy with how this looks. For now, maybe I'll drop this down a little bit. And you can play with it. And I'm just going to do the same thing and reflect it. Wow, that looks so much better. Okay, so let's bring it so that it touches this middle line. And now we have our two sides. What we want to do now is connect these so it's one outside block, like we talked about in the last section. We want this to be one solid outline. And the reason for that is that when we fill these with color, let's say that I filled this with color, if I don't connect it, then only half of it's going to connect, or half of it's going to fill. And if I were just to go and fill this with the same color, if we go in here, you can see that you're going to end up with a white line down the middle. So what we want to do is you can either use your direct select tool to select these 2 points, right click, and click join, and that will join these pieces together. Now remember, this is not joined down here, so you have to do it twice. Or what you can also do is you can use just your select tool, and I'm clicking on this piece, and I'm going to hold shift and click on the other side, and then you can click join, and then you can click join again. Now, sometimes you'll get this notification that pops up, and it's basically just telling you that either something's already grouped, there's some sort of error, or that it has connected your top and bottom for you in one command. So don't worry too much about this. Sometimes it means that you need to go in and ungroup something. Just make sure that your whole shape is filled in, and to test that, you can just fill it with a color just to make sure that there aren't any like weird lines going through it and you don't have any points that aren't connected. All right, so now we have our outline, and we're going to do the exact same thing when we add our details. So what you're going to do is start drawing in those details, and same thing that we did with the back neck drop, hold shift and drag so that that's a square line. And you can see that now this is the same weight as our outside. My outside line, I always have it 2 point. And then any lines that are outside, in quotes, lines, but are details within your sketch, I have at 1 point. So your neck, your hems will all be at 1 point. And you can see the different point sizes that I use in the PDF document that I've attached with this series. And we're just going to go through and create the rest of the details. All right, so now I have my basic outlines for what I want, for my hems, my open neck. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my armhole as well. And my armhole, I typically have at 0.75. And then I am going to add in my neck, and that can be at 0.752. And then I just did Command C, Command F to paste this in front. And now I'm going to change my line weight to dashed line at 1.5, dash and gap. And then you can just, kind of move this a little bit just to make it line up. Same thing here. What you can do is you can use your eyedropper tool, just I, and I can just select that same path style that I just created. Just doing the same thing down here. And then what you can do is same thing, just grab all of these inside pieces. So I've grabbed all of that. I don't want to reflect this outside, so I'm going to hold shift and click that to unselect it. And then we're just going to reflect again. And shift and drag. And because our sketch is symmetrical, that will all line up where we want it to be. Now you can see that because these lines aren't connected, now you're getting this like weird where the dashes are connected in the middle. And we're just going to go through and join everything and see how that changed that. But you're going to do that with all of the details because you want those to be each thing to be one line. So you don't need to worry about connecting anything here at the arm, but at these points where it connects in the middle, you're going to want to join those. Now, you can go ahead and do that on your own. What we're going to do for creating our back piece is you can just copy this that you've already created. And so I'm just going to use this one that I've already created up here. And what you're going to do is you can just copy and paste this just like I've done. And then you can go in and I just double clicked into this group. I had it grouped already, and you can just start deleting the parts that you don't need and the parts that you need to redraw. So our, our 3D arm, how we have it a little bit up, showing up. We're not going to have that when we have the back. We're not going to have our neck drop like that. We're just going to have a neck drop here. So we don't need all of this. And we don't need all of this. But we can keep like our armhole and stuff like that. And what you're going to go back and do is do the same thing that we did with the front and add those details in the back. You can see more details about how we're going to do that in the PDF document. And I kind of touched on this a little bit in the last section, but I talk about it a little bit more in the PDF about movement lines. So you may want to add in some movement lines. I have included the sizing that I use in the PDF document for movement lines. There are several schools of thoughts about using movement lines in the industry. Typically, you're not going to use them unless you are illustrating, like a dart or ruffles or something like that, because it can get confusing for the factory. For example, I was in a situation where we had movement lines, just like something like this, where you have just kind of these like illustrative lines, and you're assuming that the factory knows that this is supposed to be straight across, but you're trying to show that you want the fabric to be flowy and easy on the body. But what it ends up looking like is seam lines. And I have actually been at a company where the factory did mistake stuff like this for seam lines. And then there were all these random seam lines on the garment. So that is kind of where the shift has happened. So when you start running into problems like that, you're going to go back to something that's a little bit more simple like these. You really don't need these movement lines unless you're trying to show fullness, like a ruffle or a dart or something like that.